There is a battle that no one sees, yet it determines everything you become. It's not fought in the streets nor in the presence of enemies. It is fought in the secret chambers of your own mind. How many dreams have died because of silent self-sabotage? How many destinies delayed because you believed the lies within? But today, something must shift. Today, the voice that tells you you can't will be silenced. Are you ready to break free from the greatest enemy you've ever faced, the one living in your own thoughts? There is a silent battle, a war that rages within, and yet no one else can see it. It doesn't show up on your face. It doesn't echo through the room, but it shapes your life in ways more powerful than you realize. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not outside of you. It is not the critic. It is not the betrayer. It is not the one who lied about you. The greatest enemy is the voice within that whispers, "You are not enough." The voice that says, "Don't try. You will fail." The voice that builds invisible walls around your potential. How many times have you stood on the edge of greatness, but your mind told you you're not ready? How many doors has fear kept you from opening, simply because your thoughts betrayed your destiny? You see, the mind is powerful. It was designed to carry vision, but when it is not renewed, it carries poison. It becomes a battlefield of doubt, insecurity, and self-sabotage. And the tragedy is, when your mind becomes the enemy, you no longer need someone else to stop you. You stop yourself. Think about it. How many opportunities have you lost because you believed your own excuses? How many relationships were destroyed because you couldn't silence the lies you told yourself? You began to accept limitations that were never meant to define you, and slowly, you started to live a life beneath your true calling. But here is the truth. Your thoughts are not supposed to rule you. You were created to rule them. You were given the ability to renew, to reset, to transform your mind so it aligns with purpose. But you must recognize this war. You cannot win against an enemy you refuse to confront. The battle within must be acknowledged before it can be conquered. You must learn to ask yourself, who is speaking to me right now? Is it fear, is it trauma, or is it truth? Because not every thought belongs in your life. Not every thought deserves your agreement. The wrong thoughts will imprison you, but the right ones will set you free. So, today, you must decide. Will you keep surrendering to the lies of your own mind, or will you rise and take authority over it? Will you keep living as a prisoner of self-sabotage, or will you walk in the freedom that was always meant for you? Because the greatest chains are the ones you can't see, but they keep you from everything you're called to be. And until you break them, you will never taste the fullness of your destiny. But how do you break those chains? How do you silence the voice that has been so loud for so long? The answer is not what you think, and it leads us to the next powerful truth. Breaking the chains of self-sabotage begins with a simple but powerful realization. You are not what your mind tells you when it is trapped in fear. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not the labels placed on you by others. And you are not the failure your past tries to define. But listen carefully. Until you confront the lies you have agreed with, you will live as if they are truth. Self-sabotage doesn't always scream. It often whispers, "Stay where it's safe. Don't risk being disappointed. Don't step out because you might fall." It convinces you to shrink, to settle, to stop reaching. It becomes a silent assassin of purpose. Have you noticed how it works? You take one step forward, but then a thought drags you 2 steps back. You feel the stirring of a dream, but suddenly you rehearse every reason why it cannot happen. It's like building a house with your hands, but tearing it down with your thoughts. Self-sabotage doesn't always come from what others say. It comes from the unhealed parts of you, the unrenewed mind that cannot yet see the greatness within. And if you are not careful, you will confuse comfort with peace. You will call it wisdom, when really it's fear in disguise. How many times have you told yourself, maybe it's not the right time, when deep inside you knew it was just self-doubt holding you hostage? But here's the key. Every time you choose to believe a lie about yourself, you give it power. Every time you agree with your fear, you strengthen it. The only way to break free is to replace what is false with what is true. You must reprogram your inner dialogue. Speak life where there has been death. Speak courage where there has been fear. Because words are not just sounds, they are seeds. And when you keep planting negative seeds in your mind, you will always reap a harvest of limitations. But when you plant seeds of truth, your thinking begins to align with destiny. You stop fighting yourself. You stop being your own enemy. You stop delaying what was always meant for you. So today, you must stop rehearsing your pain and start declaring your promise. You must stop feeding the voice of defeat and start nurturing the voice of victory. Because self-sabotage cannot survive in an environment of renewed thinking. It loses its grip when you finally refuse to agree with it. But there's more, much more, because even when you begin to silence those negative voices, there is another hidden trap, a deeper layer of resistance that keeps you stuck in the same cycles. What is it? Why does it feel like even after breaking one chain, another one appears? The answer will reveal the next step to complete freedom. When your thoughts betray your destiny, it is one of the most dangerous forms of sabotage because it doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. You were created with a purpose, a divine blueprint woven into your very being. But the mind that has been shaped by fear, by past wounds, by wrong beliefs, will always try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you, this dream is too big. You're not qualified. You're not worthy. Someone else can do it, but not you. And if you listen long enough, you begin to live beneath your potential. You begin to call smallness humility. You start accepting limitations as if they are permanent truth. But hear me, the mind can either be your greatest ally or your greatest betrayer. And when it betrays you, it delays everything connected to your destiny. Think about it. How many times have you been presented with an opportunity, but your thoughts talked you out of it? How many moments of courage were stolen by overthinking? Your destiny was designed to expand you, to stretch you, but your mind kept you in a prison of what feels safe. And here is the tragedy. You can be gifted, you can be anointed, you can be chosen, but still live a life of frustration because your mind refuses to align with the greatness inside you. You cannot walk into a future you don't believe you deserve. You cannot hold what your heart desires if your thoughts keep rejecting it. The betrayal of the mind is subtle. It convinces you to protect yourself from failure, but in reality, it's protecting you from success. But there is hope. The same mind that betrayed you can be renewed. The same thoughts that limited you can be reshaped. You must train your mind to agree with your destiny. You must feed it with truth until it begins to support what you are called to become. Because every time you think in alignment with your purpose, you take one step closer to the life you were created for. And here's the key. Your destiny cannot fully unfold until your mind is ready to carry it. That is why so many stay stuck. It's not because they lack opportunity, it's because their thoughts cannot sustain the weight of their calling. So, you must ask yourself, will I keep allowing my thoughts to betray the life I was meant to live? Or will I rise and renew my mind so it becomes a servant to my destiny, not a saboteur? This is the turning point where everything shifts. But even after your mind aligns, there is still another barrier. There is another hidden layer that keeps you trapped in cycles you don't even see. What is it that silently fuels these betraying thoughts? Why do they keep returning even when you push them away? The answer lies deeper, in the very root of your identity, and that is where we must go next. Mastering the voice that tries to limit you is one of the most important battles you will ever fight, because that voice, it doesn't shout, it whispers. It whispers when you are alone. It whispers when you are about to step into something new. It whispers when you are on the edge of a breakthrough. It says, "Who do you think you are? You're not ready. You're not good enough." And if you don't learn to master it, it will master you. It will silence your courage. It will steal your confidence. It will hold your future hostage. You see, the limiting voice is not always loud, but it is consistent. It shows up every time you try to rise, every time you dare to believe there is more. And if you are not careful, you start mistaking that voice for truth. But hear this, just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. Just because a feeling is strong doesn't mean it is right. The limiting voice often comes from fear, from past disappointments, from the opinions of people who could not see your potential. It is an echo of broken moments, but it is not the final word over your life. You must learn to challenge it. You must speak back, because silence is agreement. And every time you agree with that voice, it grows stronger. But every time you resist it, every time you declare truth over it, it begins to lose its power. You were never meant to be controlled by an inner critic. You were meant to speak life, to command your thoughts, to set the direction of your own mind. So, how do you master this voice? You replace it, you overwhelm it, you feed your mind with so much truth that lies have no room to stay. You remind yourself daily, "I am capable, I am chosen, I am enough, I am becoming who I was created to be." And the more you affirm what is true, the weaker the voice of limitation becomes. It doesn't disappear overnight, but it begins to fade. It begins to lose its grip. And soon, the voice that once kept you small will no longer have authority over your decisions. You will rise above it because you now understand that you have the power to choose which voice you follow. But there's another layer, even deeper, because sometimes, even after you silence the limiting voice, you still feel stuck, you still hesitate, you still find yourself circling the same patterns. Why? Because there's something hidden beneath the voice, something that feeds it, something that keeps it alive even when you try to kill it. What is this hidden root? Why does it keep showing up no matter how much you push forward? The answer lies in confronting the patterns you've unknowingly built over time. And that's where we must go next. Escaping the trap of negative inner dialogue begins with recognizing how powerful your words really are, especially the ones you speak to yourself. The thoughts you repeat become the beliefs you carry, and the beliefs you carry shape the life you live. Many people are trapped, not by external forces, but by the silent conversations happening in their own minds. Every day, you are either building yourself up with words of life or tearing yourself down with words of defeat. And the danger is, you don't even notice it happening because it feels normal. You say things like, "I can't do this, I always fail, nothing ever works out for me." And you don't realize those are not harmless phrases. They are seeds being planted in the soil of your mind. And whatever you plant will grow. Have you ever caught yourself rehearsing the worst-case scenario before anything has even happened? You create fear in your mind before there's even a reason to fear. You talk yourself out of opportunities before you even try. That's the power of negative inner dialogue. It doesn't just keep you from moving forward, it convinces you that moving forward isn't even worth it. It becomes a cycle. You think small, you speak small, and you begin to live small. And the sad truth is, many never escape this trap because they think it's just who they are. But it's not who you are. It's a pattern. It's a learned behavior. And what has been learned can be unlearned. So how do you break free? You must replace the old dialogue with a new one. You must catch those thoughts and speak something different. When your mind says, "You can't," you must declare, "I can and I will." When it says, "You're not enough," You must speak, I am more than enough for the purpose I was created for. Because here's the truth. Your words create your reality. And if you keep saying what you don't want, you will keep living what you don't deserve. But when you start declaring what aligns with your destiny, your mind will follow, your actions will align, and your life will shift. Change your words, and you will change your world. But even as you begin to replace negative dialogue with positive truth, there is still another danger. Because it's not just about what you speak privately to yourself, it's also about what you allow to be spoken into your life by others. You may silence the inner critic, but what about the outer voices that keep feeding you doubt? What about the environment you're in, the people around you, the influences you let shape your thinking? Because sometimes the greatest battle for your mind is not fought alone. It's fought in the company you keep. And that's the next step we must uncover. Transforming mental barriers into bridges of growth requires you to confront not only what you think, but also what you allow into your life. Because your environment is shaping you more than you realize. The people you listen to, the voices you entertain, the atmosphere you live in, it all feeds your mind. You cannot expect to build a victorious mindset while constantly being surrounded by defeat. You cannot expect to think big while living in a circle of small thinkers, and you cannot expect to break free from fear while constantly hearing words that feed fear. Mental barriers are often reinforced by the company you keep, the conversations you repeat, the culture you accept as normal. If you don't change what feeds your mind, you will never change the fruit it produces. Have you noticed how some people drain your courage just by the way they speak? They magnify the problem but never see the solution. They remind you of your failures but never your potential. And slowly, without realizing it, their words become your words. Their doubts become your doubts, and their limits become your limits. That is how mental barriers are built, not just by your own thoughts, but by the collective influence of everything around you. But here's the good news. What has been built can be dismantled. You can choose what and who you allow into your mind. You can shift your environment to align with the future you desire, not the past you are leaving behind. So how do you turn these barriers into bridges? You start by intentionally feeding your mind with what uplifts, not what destroys. You surround yourself with voices that speak life, not death. You choose relationships that call out the best in you, not the worst. And most importantly, you begin to see every barrier as an opportunity to grow. Instead of saying, this is too hard, you say, this is preparing me. Instead of saying, I can't overcome this, you say, this will make me stronger. Because the same wall that blocks others can become the stepping stone that lifts you higher. It all depends on how you see it and how you speak about it. But even as you begin to shift your environment and your influence, there's still another level you must face. Because sometimes the deepest barrier is not external. It is the hidden pain from your past that keeps speaking into your present. It is the unresolved wounds that shape how you see yourself, how you see others, how you see your future. So the question is, how do you heal what you cannot see? How do you silence the voice of the past that keeps echoing into your today? The next step will take us deeper into the place where true transformation begins. How do you stop fighting yourself and start winning? It begins with understanding that the greatest battle you will ever fight is not with the world around you, but with the world within you. You cannot conquer what you refuse to confront, and you cannot defeat what you keep protecting. Many are losing the war within because they are trying to escape their own reflection. They are running from their past, avoiding their pain, masking their insecurities, and pretending that everything is fine. But hear this clearly. You cannot heal what you keep hiding. You cannot win against an enemy you refuse to face. The moment you decide to confront yourself with honesty is the moment the journey to true victory begins. So what does it really mean to stop fighting yourself? It means forgiving yourself for the mistakes you've made. It means letting go of the shame that keeps you paralyzed. It means accepting that your past was a lesson, not a life sentence. Too many people are held captive by guilt, replaying old failures, believing they are unworthy of a better future. And as long as you keep fighting yourself, sabotaging yourself, doubting yourself, you will never experience the fullness of who you were created to be. But when you decide, I will no longer be my own enemy, everything shifts. Because you cannot build a great life on a foundation of self-rejection. So you must choose to be on your own side. You must choose to speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. You must become your own encourager, your own motivator, your own believer. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else's belief will be enough to carry you. When you stop fighting yourself, you stop draining your own strength. You stop wasting energy battling your identity, and you begin to channel that same energy into building your future. You begin to walk with clarity, with confidence, with focus. And suddenly, the same mind that once held you back becomes the mind that propels you forward. But even after you make peace with yourself, even after you decide to stop being your own enemy, there is still another layer to winning. Because victory is not just about stopping the fight within. It's about strengthening what's within so deeply that external storms cannot shake you. It's about developing resilience, so no matter what life throws at you, you stand firm, unshaken, unbroken. So the question becomes, how do you build that kind of inner strength? How do you develop a mindset so anchored that nothing and no one can pull you back down? That is the next step on this journey. From self-doubt to self-mastery. This is where true transformation takes place, because self-doubt is a thief. It steals your confidence before you even try. It convinces you to shrink when you are born to expand. It tells you that others are capable, but somehow you are not. And if you listen to it long enough, it becomes your reality. You begin to settle for less. You begin to dream smaller. You begin to walk through life questioning your own worth. But self-doubt is not a permanent condition. It is a mindset that can be replaced. And when you replace it with self-mastery, everything changes. So what is self-mastery? It is the ability to lead yourself, to govern your own thoughts, your emotions, your decisions. It is knowing that you cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. Self-mastery means you're no longer a slave to fear, no longer a prisoner of insecurity, no longer tossed around by every emotion or opinion. It means you have trained your mind to serve your purpose, not sabotage it. And here is the key. Self-mastery is not about being perfect. It is about being disciplined. It is about knowing your weaknesses but refusing to let them define you. It is about rising above the noise of doubt and choosing to move forward anyway. To move from self-doubt to self-mastery, you must start small. Master your mornings, master your thoughts, master your words, master your habits, because self-doubt grows in the absence of discipline. But self-mastery is built through consistency. When you choose daily to think higher, to speak life, to act with intention, you begin to rewire your entire mindset. Slowly, the voice of doubt loses its authority. Slowly, the fear of failure becomes the fuel for growth. And soon, what once held you back becomes the very thing that propels you forward. But here's the deeper truth. Self-mastery is not just about overcoming doubt. It's about stepping fully into your identity. It's about knowing who you are so clearly that nothing can shake you. When you know who you are, You stop seeking validation from others. You stop comparing yourself to anyone else. You stop questioning whether you are enough because you live from a place of inner certainty. And that certainty produces boldness, clarity, and unstoppable momentum. But even as you begin to master yourself, there is still one more crucial step, because it's not just about mastering the inner world, it's about aligning that mastery with a greater vision, a greater purpose beyond yourself. Because self-mastery without purpose is just control, but self-mastery with purpose becomes power. So the question is, what is the purpose behind all this? Why were you given the mind you have, the gifts you carry, the life you live? The answer to that will unlock the highest level of freedom, and that is where we go next. Reprogramming the mind for freedom and purpose is the ultimate shift, because your mind is the control center of your entire life. If your mind is bound, your life will remain bound. If your mind is free, your life will begin to reflect that freedom. You cannot step into a new season with an old mindset. You cannot carry a renewed purpose while still holding on to recycled thoughts. So the question is, what have you been allowing to program your mind? What patterns have you been repeating without even realizing it? Because your thoughts are not random, they are shaped. They are shaped by what you watch, what you listen to, what you believe about yourself. And if you don't take control of that process, your mind will always default to what it has been fed the longest. But hear this, your mind can be renewed. It can be reprogrammed. It can be rewired to align with the life you are truly meant to live. Freedom begins the moment you decide to stop feeding the old and start feeding the new. You begin to meditate on truth instead of fear. You begin to focus on what is possible instead of what is impossible. You begin to let go of toxic thoughts that weaken you and embrace empowering thoughts that strengthen you. Because what you repeatedly think about, you will eventually believe. And what you believe, you will eventually live. This is why your mind must be intentional. It cannot be left unguarded. So how do you practically reprogram your mind? You create new patterns, you build new habits, you speak life even when it feels uncomfortable. You remind yourself daily of your purpose, of your identity, of your worth. You fill your mind with words that uplift, with ideas that challenge you, with wisdom that stretches you. Over time, the old programming fades. The lies that once held you no longer have power. The fear that once controlled you loses its grip. And slowly, you begin to walk in a freedom that cannot be shaken, because it doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. But here's the deeper reason for this shift. Your mind is not just meant to be free for your own sake. It is meant to serve your purpose, because when your mind is renewed, your vision becomes clearer. You begin to see why you were created, what you were called to do, and who you are meant to impact. And once you understand your purpose, you stop wasting time on what doesn't matter. You stop being distracted by temporary things. You begin to live with intention, with clarity, with direction. But even when you discover your purpose, there is still one more key, because purpose alone is not enough. It must be protected, it must be nurtured, it must be sustained, and there is one final truth that will ensure you never return to the prison of your old mind again. Why is the strongest prison the one built in your mind? Because no matter how free you are on the outside, if your mind is still bound, you will live as if you are still chained. You can have opportunities but never step into them. You can have doors open but never walk through. You can have resources in your hands but never use them. Why? Because the invisible prison is always more powerful than the visible one. The way you think shapes the way you live. And if your thoughts are limited, your life will always reflect that limitation. This is why some people live their entire lives in cycles, going around and around but never truly moving forward, because they never break out of the mental cage that was built over years of fear, trauma, and wrong beliefs. But hear this clearly. A prison built in the mind can only be destroyed by the truth. Truth is what unlocks the door. Truth is what breaks the chains. Truth is what gives you the power to see beyond what you feel and believe what is possible. And when you begin to embrace truth, something shifts. You realize you are not who your past says you are. You are not the failure your mistakes tried to define. You are not the label society placed on you. You are more. You are capable. You are chosen. You are designed for more than survival. You are designed for impact. And once your mind accepts that truth, the prison loses its power. So how do you protect this freedom? You must guard your mind daily. You must be intentional about what you allow in. Because even after you are free, the enemy of your purpose will try to pull you back. Old thoughts will try to resurface. Old voices will try to remind you of who you used to be. But you must refuse to return to what you've been delivered from. You must speak life even when it feels unnatural. You must remind yourself of your vision even when circumstances try to cloud it. Freedom of the mind is not a one-time event. It is a daily decision. A decision to rise, a decision to grow, a decision to never settle for less than what you were created for. And now, as you stand at this point, you must decide. Will you stay in the prison of your past, or will you walk boldly into the future that is waiting for you? Will you keep rehearsing old limitations, or will you renew your mind, step into purpose, and live in the fullness of freedom you were meant to carry? The power is in your choice. The key is already in your hand, and the door, it has always been open. So rise up today. Rise beyond the lies. Rise beyond the fear. Rise beyond the voices that tried to keep you small. Choose freedom over bondage. Choose purpose over confusion. Choose to become everything you were destined to be. Because when your mind is free, your life will follow. And when your life follows, nothing and no one can stop you.